My dear friends, listen closely, because what I'm about to tell you is not a casual statement, not a soft whisper, not something meant merely to encourage your emotions. This is a divine announcement for your spirit. This is a declaration that shakes the foundations of every fear, every disappointment, every delay, every loss, every defeat that has tried to bury your identity. This is a spiritual wake-up call to your soul. You are not finished. God is not finished. And your comeback is already in motion. Even if your eyes cannot see it yet. There are moments in life where everything seems to press against you. At the same time, your relationships strain, your finances weaken, your health trembles, your confidence cracks, and your future feels blurry. And it is in these moments that the enemy whispers, "You are done. There is no return. Nothing is going to change." But hear me with all the fire of conviction. God never writes a story where the darkness wins the final chapter. The author of your destiny does not surrender his pen to your circumstances. What looks like an ending to you is merely a transition in the hands of God. You may have cried, you may have questioned, you may have wondered why certain things collapsed, you may have felt abandoned by people you trusted, you may have stood in the silence of unanswered prayers and asked, "Why is this happening to me?" But let me tell you something with spiritual certainty. Sometimes God allows what you think is collapsing, because He is preparing what will restore you. Sometimes God permits what breaks you, because He is setting the stage for what will build you back stronger than ever. Your comeback is not just about returning to who you were. No, God does not bring you back to old levels. When God orchestrates a comeback, He elevates, He strengthens, He multiplies, He transforms. God is not bringing you back to the place you lost. God is bringing you to the place you were always meant to be. Right now, even as you listen to this, there are things shifting in the unseen realm. You may not feel movement. You may not see evidence. You may not hear any sign of progress. But the silence of God does not mean the absence of God. The silence of God often means the strategy of God. And when God is strategizing, what looks like inactivity is actually divine preparation. Your comeback requires preparation. It requires recalibration. It requires God to move people out of your life. Move obstacles out of your way. Expose false connections. Redirect your steps and break the chains that have quietly held your spirit captive. You may not know it, but God is removing things that would have suffocated your destiny. God is clearing paths you didn't even know were blocked. God is rescuing you from battles you didn't even realize were forming. And the very things that wounded you, the very things that frustrated you, the very things that delayed you, those were not signs that God abandoned you. Those were signs that God was reorganizing your story. Let me tell you something vital. A comeback always requires a setback. A rise always requires a fall. An elevation always requires a foundation being shaken. If your life were always smooth, always easy, always predictable, you would never discover depths of strength, clarity, and spiritual authority that God placed inside you. You would never grow, never expand, never evolve into the version of yourself that is called to walk into your destiny. God allows the shaking not to destroy you, but to detox you. The shaking removed people who were not meant to walk with you. The shaking broke attachments that were diluting your purpose. The shaking revealed truths you needed to see. The shaking exposed weaknesses you needed to strengthen. The shaking dismantled illusions that were blocking your spiritual clarity. Every tear you cried, every disappointment you endured, every door that closed, every opportunity that slipped through your fingers, none of it was wasted. God wastes not. God uses everything. And right now God is weaving your broken pieces into a masterpiece. The same God who allowed the wilderness is the same God preparing your promised restoration. The enemy hoped your struggle would make you bitter, but God is using it to make you wiser. The enemy hoped your losses would make you hopeless, but God is using them to teach you resilience. The enemy hoped your heartbreak would break your faith, but God is using it to deepen your trust. The enemy hoped your delays would make you give up, but God is using them to strengthen your endurance. Because the truth is simple. If the enemy could have stopped your purpose, he would have. But he couldn't, and he didn't, and he never will. Your survival is the evidence that God has not released you. Your breath is proof that your assignment is still alive. Your struggle is confirmation that something greater is coming. When you feel the pressure intensifying, it is a sign that a breakthrough is near. The enemy does not attack what has no potential. You have been a target because you carry something powerful, something valuable, something divinely placed inside you by God. That is why your valley felt so long. That is why your nights felt so heavy. That is why your mind felt so burdened. That is why your soul felt so tired. Because what God is preparing you for requires a level of depth, wisdom, and maturity that can only be forged through struggle. And now the season is shifting. You are entering the realm of divine reversal, divine acceleration, divine restoration. God is about to take what was meant to crush you and use it to crown you. God is about to take what was meant to bury you and use it to elevate you. God is about to take what was meant to silence you and use it to amplify your voice. Your comeback begins the moment you decide that defeat is not your identity. Your comeback begins when you stand up internally before anything around you changes and you say, this is not the end for. God still has a plan and I will not stop walking until I see it fulfilled. The comeback does not start with circumstances. It starts with conviction. It starts with belief. It starts with the inner fire that refuses to be extinguished. That fire is inside you. It has survived storms that others would have collapsed under. It has survived betrayals that would have broken most. It has survived loneliness, rejection, mockery, self-doubt, false accusations, and silent suffering. You have endured far more than the world knows. But God knows. God has seen every hidden battle. God has counted every tear. God has measured every weight on your shoulders. And God has determined that your time of rising is here. Let me tell you something powerful. Your comeback will not be subtle. When God restores, He does not restore halfway. When God elevates, He does not elevate quietly. When God strengthens, He does not strengthen partially. Your comeback will be loud, not in noise, but in impact. Loud. In the way people look at you and say, how did they survive that? Loud in the way doors open for you suddenly. Loud in the way blessings fall in rapid sequence. Loud in the way your past no longer resembles your future. And the people who doubted you, the people who walked away, the people who underestimated you, they will not understand how God transformed your story so quickly, because your comeback will not make earthly sense. It will be supernatural. Add motivation, dead passion. But hear this, what looks dead to you is only sleeping in the hands of God. And when God decides it is time, He speaks one word and everything comes alive again. One touch from God can shift your entire direction. One moment of divine favor can undo years of struggle. One breath from God can revive what you thought would never rise again. And one decision from God can place you in a position you never imagined. You are about to experience a divine turnaround. God is transforming your valleys into testimonies. God is turning your exhaustion into empowerment. God is turning your confusion into clarity. God is turning your setbacks into stepping stones. Do not underestimate yourself. The enemy may have attacked you, but he did not win. You are still here, still fighting, still believing, still seeking, still hoping, still standing. And that alone makes you unstoppable when God is guiding your steps. Some of you listening right now feel tired, deeply tired, tear, ache in your bones, tired in your soul. You have been fighting battles with no applause, carrying burdens with no recognition, holding on to hope with no reassurance. You have been faithful in seasons where faith felt impossible. And you wonder if God sees you. God sees you. God has seen your sacrifices, your patience, your silent tears, your quiet endurance. God has seen you remain peaceful when you could have responded in anger. God has seen you extend kindness when you received none in return. God has seen you stay humble when pride could have ruled your heart. God has seen you stay generous even in your own lack. God has in your heart, and God is about to reward your faithfulness. Your comeback is not just about external blessings. It is about internal transformation. God is not only restoring what you lost, God is restoring who you are. God is strengthening your identity, sharpening your discernment, renewing your mind, cleansing your spirit, and aligning your heart with your divine purpose. You may feel like you've been walking through darkness, but God is preparing light for you. You may feel like you've been walking through isolation, but God is preparing the right connections for you. You may feel like you've been walking through confusion, but God is preparing clarity for you. You may feel like you've been walking through delay, but God is preparing acceleration for you. Acceleration is coming. Restoration is coming. Provision is coming. Breakthrough is coming. Open doors are coming. Healing is coming. Strength is coming. Peace is coming. Divine alignment is coming. Your comeback is coming. Not next year, not someday, not eventually. Now, the shift has already begun. Heaven has already declared it. Your spirit can already feel it. There is a stirring inside you, a sense that something new is unfolding. You may not have the full picture yet, but you can feel the atmosphere of your life changing. Do not let fear rob you of the blessing God is preparing. Do not let doubt suffocate the promise God has spoken over you. Do not let past failures convince you that why you are unworthy of a comeback. What God restores, no one can block. What God elevates, no one can reverse. What God blesses, no one can curse. You are stepping into a season where everything that was against you will start working for you. The pain that once weakened you will now strengthen your purpose. The loss that once devastated you will now deepen your vision. The delay that once frustrated you will now prepare your elevation. God has already written the chapter of your comeback. And it is far more powerful than the chapter of your struggle. What is coming is greater than what was lost. What is ahead is greater than what is behind. God does not take you through a valley without preparing a mountain on the other side. And you are approaching that mountain now. Your spirit is rising. Your hope is rising. Your strength is rising. Your courage is rising. Your clarity is rising. Our purpose is rising. You are rising because God is lifting you. When God prepares a comeback, He does not simply restore what was taken. He redefines who you are. The coming transformation is not merely a change of circumstances. It is a change of identity. A deep awakening of the spiritual authority God placed inside you long before the world ever knew your name. And this awakening is not gentle. It is powerful. It is the kind of awakening that makes you stand taller, think clearer, speak with conviction, walk with purpose, and breathe with renewed strength. This is the divine shift that happens when God decides it is time for your life to rise again. Many people misunderstand the nature of a comeback. They think it is about returning to a place, a position, or a version of themselves that once existed. But God is not bringing you backward. God is propelling you forward. Your comeback is not a return to the old. It is an elevation into the new. The old version of you needed approval. See, he new version moves with confidence. The old version worried about outcomes. The new version trusts God's timing. The old version depended on people. The new version stands anchored in God alone. This is not the restoration of yesterday. This is the transformation of tomorrow. You must understand something profound. God does not allow certain seasons to collapse because he is cruel, but because he is clearing the ground for the next chapter. Sometimes God must strip away what is familiar so he can reveal what is divine. Sometimes comfort must be disrupted so purpose can be activated. Sometimes what you relied on must be shaken so you learn to rely fully on God. And when God is your foundation, it does not matter how violent the storm becomes. You will rise again. Your comeback begins with revelation. God reveals what you could not see before. He reveals the truth about people you trusted, but who are not aligned with your destiny. He reveals hidden strengths you didn't know you possessed. He reveals the depth of his protection by allowing you to walk through battles that should have broken you, but didn't. He reveals that his guidance is not always loud, but always precise. When God prepares a comeback, he clears the vision of your heart. You stop seeing yourself through the lens of defeat and start seeing yourself through the lens of divine purpose. And when your sight is restored, your spirit is strengthened. Suddenly you begin to understand that even the worst seasons were carrying divine purpose. You begin to realize that the things that felt like setbacks were actually God preserving you. You begin to recognize that the delays were not denials, but divine recalibrations. You begin to appreciate that the things you thought were unfair were actually God's way of protecting your future. This is the spiritual clarity that forms the foundation of a true comeback. But the comeback also requires the courage to release what God has removed. Some of you have been carrying emotional weight that God never intended for you to keep. You have held on to guilt, regret, shame, failed relationships, false expectations, and painful memories. And as long as your hands are full of the past, they cannot receive the future. God is calling you to release every heavy thing that has drained your spirit. God is calling you to let go so he can place something greater in your life. The release is not a loss. It is preparation for the blessing that is coming in this next season. God is not asking you to be the same person you were. God is calling you to rise as a version of yourself that is spiritually mature, mentally strong, emotionally grounded, and deeply anchored in divine truth. Your comeback is about becoming someone who walks with unwavering faith. Someone who is guided not by fear, but by spiritual conviction. Someone who knows that every step is directed by the wisdom of God. This is the kind of person who cannot be shaken by opinions, cannot be slowed by PT, and cannot be stopped by circumstances. You must also understand that your comeback is not only for you. It is for every life connected to you. God is raising you so you can become a living testimony of his power. Your story will strengthen someone else's faith. Your resilience will awaken hope in those who feel forgotten. Your transformation will show others that God still opens doors no one can close. God still lifts those who are overlooked. God still restores those who are broken. God still makes a way where there seems to be no way. Your comeback carries purpose because God is using your life as evidence. Evidence that he protects, evidence that he provides, evidence that he guides, evidence that he transforms, evidence that he never abandons those who trust him. And when God truly says you as evidence, he does not create a small transformation. He creates a transformation that cannot be ignored. People who saw you fall will witness your rise. People who doubted your potential will be humbled by your progress. People who rejected you will see the blessing they walked away from. God's work in your life will speak louder than any explanation you could ever give. But listen closely. A comeback requires alignment. You cannot step into the next chapter carrying the mindset of the previous one. You cannot move into divine purpose with limited expectations. You cannot walk into new blessings with old fears. You cannot claim restoration while clinging to the identity of defeat. God is calling you to elevate your thinking. God is calling you to believe for more than you ever imagined. God is calling you to think bigger, expect greater, pray deeper, and trust more boldly. Do not underestimate what God is about to do. The same God who created galaxies with the Word, the same God who holds the universe in balance, the same God who gives breath to every living thing is the God who is guiding your steps. If God can sustain creation, He can sustain you. If God can orchestrate the movement of stars, He can orchestrate the movement of your destiny. If God can bring order out of chaos in the world, He can bring order out of the chaos in your life. Nothing is too big for God, and nothing is too broken for Him to restore. You may not understand the timing, but you can trust the purpose. You may not understand the process, but you can trust the plan. God's timing is never early and never late. It is always exact. God's process is never cruel. It is always intentional. What you see as a delay is actually God aligning resources, people, opportunities, and circumstances precisely at the moment they will benefit you most. God is never rushed and never confused. Everything He does is orchestrated with divine intelligence and perfect wisdom. And while God is preparing your comeback externally, He is strengthening you internally. He is enlarging your capacity. He is refining your character. He is deepening your discernment. He is strengthening your endurance. He is training your spirit to remain calm in chaos and confident in uncertainty. God is not only preparing the blessing, He is preparing you for the blessing. Because the worst thing that can happen is to receive what you prayed for without being ready to steward it. God prepares you so you can sustain what He gives you. There is a reason your path has been difficult. There is a reason you faced resistance. There is a reason certain doors remain closed. There is a reason certain relationships ended. There is a reason you were forced into seasons of silence and separation. God has been removing the noise so you can hear Him more clearly. God has been removing the distraction so you can see the path more clearly. God has been removing the burden so you can rise more freely. This is divine preparation, not divine punishment. And now you are entering the season where everything begins to make sense. You will look back and realize that the pain was necessary, the loss was essential, the silence was purposeful, and the struggle was instrumental. You will look back and see that God was guiding you even when you felt confused. You will look back and recognize that God was protecting you even when you felt vulnerable. You will look back and understand that God was strengthening you even when you felt weak. And in that moment, you will know with absolute certainty God never left you. Your comeback is not just a shift in your circumstances. It is a shift in your identity, your focus, your spirit, your vision, and your destiny. God is not simply restoring what you lost. God is restoring the strength you forgot you had. God is restoring the peace that life tried to steal. God is restoring the confidence that trials tried to break. God is restoring the hope that disappointment tried to suffocate. God is restoring the fire that hardship tried to extinguish. You are stepping into a chapter where God's favor will surround you like a shield, where doors will open without your effort, where opportunities will find you, where peace will follow you, where clarity will guide you, where the weight you once carried will lift, where the path that once seemed impossible will suddenly become smooth. This is what happens when God declares a comeback over your life. Nothing can block it, nothing can slow it, nothing can interfere with it. What God has spoken will manifest, and no human opinion can interrupt His plan. There comes a moment in every destiny when God does not simply open a door, He pushes you through it. And for many listening right now, that moment is approaching faster than you realize. You have been standing in the hallway of transition, feeling the tension between what was and what will be, sensing the pull of the future, while still wrestling with the residue of the past. But when God decides that your season must shift, no hesitation, no fear, no doubt, and no enemy can stop the movement of His command. God's decree over your life is stronger than any opposition against you. And your comeback is rooted not in human strength, but in divine authority. The changes God is preparing are not adjustments. They are transformations. They are not small improvements, but radical shifts. God is not polishing your old chapter. He is writing a new one with fresh ink. There is a spiritual momentum rising inside you, and it is not coming from your circumstances. It is coming from God Himself. This is why you feel restless in places that once felt comfortable. This is why certain relationships no longer fit your spirit. This is why certain environments feel too small for your growth. God is expanding you, stretching you, preparing you, and calling you into a version of yourself that aligns with the greatness He placed within you. And understand this truth. Whenever God expands you internally, He must remove what restricts you externally. You cannot rise while clinging to what keeps you grounded. You cannot grow while holding on to what keeps you stagnant. You cannot elevate while remaining attached to people or patterns that drain your strengths. So if God has allowed separation, silence, or distance, do not interpret it as rejection. Interpret it as preparation. God removes what is not aligned with your future long before He reveals what is aligned with your destiny. Your comeback requires environment. Sometimes God must take you out of a place that nourished your past but threatens your future. Sometimes God must isolate you to speak to you without interference. Sometimes God must place you in a space where you learn to depend solely on Him. These seasons are not punishments, they are refinements. And if you embrace them, you will emerge stronger, wiser, sharper, and spiritually unshakable. Many people misunderstand divine isolation. They think it is loneliness, but it is clarity. They think it is abandonment, but it is alignment. They think it is rejection, but it is protection. God isolates not to diminish you, but to strengthen you. What? And God isolates you. He is separating your identity from the expectations of others. He is removing the noise so you can hear the whisper of your destiny. He is clearing the fog so your spiritual vision becomes precise, and the clarity gained in isolation becomes the strength that fuels your comeback. There is a level of greatness God is calling you into that will require you to release the fear of being misunderstood. Not everyone will understand your rise. Not everyone will recognize your transformation. Not everyone will celebrate your comeback. And that is perfectly fine, because your destiny does not require universal approval. It requires divine approval. Your assignment is too sacred, your purpose too significant, your calling too deep to be dependent on the opinions of those who cannot see what God is doing within you. You are not rising for validation. You are rising because God has commanded your spirit to rise. You are rising because the time of being hidden is ending. You are rising because your spiritual preparation has reached maturity. You are rising because God has declared that the struggle you endured was not in vain, and no force in creation can stop the movement of a soul that God is elevating. But to sustain a comeback, you must cultivate the strength to endure blessings as much as you endured battles. Not every person can handle elevation. Not every heart can sustain growth. Not every mind can navigate abundance with humility. This is why God builds character in the dark before He reveals purpose in the light. The season you walked through was not just about surviving pain. It was about developing discipline, sharpening discernment, and cultivating wisdom. God was preparing you to carry blessings without being crushed by them. You must also understand that in your comeback season, God will place opportunities in front of you that require courage, not certainty. You will not always feel ready. You will not always feel qualified. You will not always feel equipped. But God does not choose the qualified. God qualifies those He chooses. And God has chosen you for a comeback that will defy logic, exceed expectations, and silence every doubt that ever whispered in your ear. This is why you must walk with boldness. Boldness does not mean arrogance. Boldness means moving with confidence in the presence of God. It means stepping forward even when you don't have the full picture. It means trusting that if God brought you to this moment, God will guide you through it. It means believing that every step you take in faith activates a new level of divine alignment. When you walk boldly, you give God permission to show you what He has prepared. And what God has prepared for you is not ordinary. It is not small. It is not average. God is raising you into a life that carries influence, meaning, and purpose. You were not created to blend in. You were created to stand out. You were not designed to shrink. You were designed to expand. You were not shaped for mediocrity. You were shaped for greatness. And the greatness God placed inside you is awakening, stirring, and pushing you toward your divine comeback. There is a spiritual fire in you, and God is breathing on that fire again. This fire is not emotional. It is eternal. It is the fire that pushes you to rise when everything tries to hold you down. It is the fire that whispers, keep going even when your strength feels depleted. It is the fire that refuses to let you settle for less than what God promised. This fire is the evidence that God's hand is on your life, guiding you, empowering you, and preparing you for a return that will astonish those who counted you out. Do not be surprised when God begins to accelerate things in your life. Acceleration often feels sudden to the human mind, but it is never sudden to God. God has been preparing this shift for a long time. God has been aligning pieces behind the scenes. God has been orchestrating connections you do not yet know about. God has been fighting battles you never saw. And when the timing is perfect, what has been slow for years will suddenly move with speed. What felt impossible will suddenly become evil. What resisted you will suddenly open. Acceleration is not random, it is the signature of God's timing. As you rise, remember that your comeback is not meant to be quiet. It is meant to echo through every area of your life. It is meant to restore not just your circumstances, but your identity, your strength, your confidence, and your hope. A true comeback is not just a recovery. It is a revelation. It reveals who you are when everything else is stripped away. It reveals the depth of your faith. It reveals the resilience of your soul. It reveals the power of God within you. And most importantly, your comeback will reveal God's faithfulness. You have walked through seasons where you questioned if God was listening. You have endured moments where you felt forgotten. You have carried burdens that seemed too heavy to bear. But now, God is about to show you that He was present all along. God is about to show you that none of your tears were wasted. God is about to show you that your faith, even in its smallest moments, was enough to activate His power. You are walking into a season where you will no longer have to force doors open. God will open them. You will no longer have to chase opportunities. They will come to you. You will no longer have to justify your worth. Your results will speak for you. You will no longer have to explain your journey. Your transformation will explain itself. Because when God restores, He restores completely. When God lifts, He lifts undeniably. When God blesses, He blesses abundantly. So prepare your heart. Prepare your spirit. Prepare your expectations. Because your comeback is not something you will try to achieve. It is something God has already decreed. And what God decrees cannot be undone, cannot be reversed, cannot be interrupted, and cannot be stopped. Your comeback is unfolding, and it will be greater than anything you imagine. And now hear this truth with every fiber of your being. When God chooses to elevate you, no force of darkness, no whisper of evil, and no scheme formed in secrecy can stand against the path He has written for you. What rises against you is only exposing itself because God has allowed your eyes to see what was once hidden. What tries to disrupt your peace reveals its own weakness, for nothing can overpower the one who walks under God's protection. Stand firm in this understanding. When God reveals the intentions of those around you, it is not to break you, it is to strengthen you. It is to sharpen your discernment, to deepen your wisdom, and to prepare you for the greater heights He is leading you toward. Every act of malice, every silent attack, every subtle move made in darkness becomes powerless the moment God shines His light on it. Do not fear what you now know. Do not tremble at what has been exposed. Instead, rise with a renewed spirit, knowing that God has brought you clarity so you can walk forward with confidence, dignity, and unshakable courage. You are not alone. You are not unprotected. You are not vulnerable to the plans of evil. God goes before you, stands beside you, and covers you from behind. So step into your next season with boldness. Let nothing distract you. Let nothing deceive you. Let nothing pull you away from the purpose God has set in motion. When evil realizes that you see through it, it panics. When darkness recognizes that God is guiding you, it retreats. And when you stand rooted in faith, anchored in divine truth, you become untouchable. Move forward with this conviction. God has revealed all you need to know. Now walk forward with strength, with clarity, and with the fearless authority of someone who is guided, guarded, and elevated by the Most High. You are seen. You are protected. You are led. And nothing formed in darkness can stop what God is unfolding. In your life.